Hello everybody, Merry Christmas and almost Happy New Year. I know I promised you patrons this video a long time ago, earlier this summer, but a lot of stuff has happened, and on top of that, I've had this great fear. I'll talk about this fear in a minute, but I first wanted to remind everybody that I make computer cases that I feel are not going to be made by anybody else. It's actually why I started making the Mini to begin with. I didn't want to be a case manufacturer, I just was in a company that needed a particular computer case, and I wanted something that I would buy. Something that was high-end, very portable, and tiny and had all the features that I wanted. Fast forward nearly 10 years, and we have an awesome small form factor community and tons of indie case developers making high-quality Mini ITX products. Lately, my job has been designing cases for other companies, and this makes a lot of sense to me because making computer cases as an indie developer is very difficult, especially when you're trying to make luxury computer cases. But the moment that I realized I needed to commit to the S4T is when I realized there were three groups of people that were not going to be served by the current market of computer cases, and I knew that I needed to step in and try to add my drop to the bucket. And although it's just a drop in the bucket, at least I can say I contributed. So who are these three groups? Well, first obviously are the APU crowd, the people that want a smaller computer case than the current S4 Mini, who don't need all the expansion cards but just want something basically half the size. I was originally hesitant to go in this direction because there are so many APU cases out there, but on closer inspection I have found that not a lot of them, well actually most of them are lacking in many different areas. For one, there's barely any high quality APU cases, they all tend to be quite budget. And number two, they tend to force users into power supply combinations that are really clunky, and I just think that we can do better now. The second group of users are power users that actually want a larger computer case than the current S4 Mini, but not too much larger. They want a little bit longer graphics cards, a little bit wider graphics cards, they want to be able to easily put in a power supply without doing a bunch of modding, and sometimes they want taller fans. They really want just slightly more, but they don't know what the boundaries of that slightly more is. Now it might seem crazy that the S4T is intended to help those customers as it is smaller, but that's where the T stands for transform. So tiny and transform. And you can combine two of these computer cases together to make a Mini that's slightly larger and supports a lot more stuff than the current Mini. Now the third customer is me and people like me that are really enthusiastic about smaller motherboard platforms. It's amazing that ITX has really taken off in the past decade and now it's one of the most popular form factors, but we can definitely go smaller, and ASRock also agrees with us. So here's my fear. How do I serve these three customers who are entirely different with one computer case? It seems like I can pick any one of those customers and do something well, but if I try to serve the other two, I'm just gonna have something that falls flat on its face. But that's why you guys are here. It's time for you to take a look at the S4T and to see what some of the builds that you can do with it are, and then make the judgment yourself and give me feedback. So enough blabbing, let's actually look at the builds. Let's take a look at the S4T as a micro STX chassis. They're about the same size, but the S4T includes support for an AC/DC power supply. Putting an HDPlex 400 AC in an S4T means it can be a lot smaller because of the size of the Desk Mini GTX power brick. Slimmer and shorter. Now, one of the drawbacks is you're going to have to install your own standoffs because this chassis supports so many different types of motherboards, but it's really not that big of a deal. Okay, so one of the secret sauce magical things about the S4T is the interchangeable plates for the front and rear panels, and I'm calling this SkyIO until I come up with a better name. SkyIO allows you to have a ton of different motherboards, whether they be actual custom motherboards, Raspberry Pi, graphics cards, network cards, whatever, but you'll be able to drop these plates in the back of the S4T and customize them for your own project. Now this is going to require help from the community, so I'm going to release the files in 3D. The S4T supports the same height cooler as the current Skyreach 4 Mini. It is a little bit deeper than the Skyreach 4 Mini, but the standoffs are taller, so it works out to be the same. Even though the standoffs are taller, it still might not be enough to include a heatsink despite the generous cutout I put in the back for lots of different motherboards. They don't do anything anyway, but people ask for them. You wouldn't really put a DC power supply for this motherboard in the front here, but it kind of shows you the gap and the spacing between it. Here I am removing the multi-bracket, which is the name I have for it currently, and I'm going to install it on the AC/DC 400, showing that you get more power in a much more compact, tight spot with the S4T and HD Plex products. To use the multi-bracket with the AC/DC, you actually remove the lid, and it reuses some of the HD Plex 400 AC's screw holes. It's going to be a necessity to have as much customability as possible, so there are 6 total ways you can mount the multi-bracket in the front, which is going to mean a lot of email answering for me, but the most amount of flexibility for you guys. Here's a close-up of the multi-bracket being installed on the HD Plex 400 AC. I'm having to use washers for the screws here because in manufacturing they got the size wrong, but there won't be washers in the final version. You'll just bolt it right on as you would the normal cover. Now, as you can see, the wires now face the motherboard, and you can put in the AC/DC neatly and nicely into the S4T. Doesn't it look completely awesome with the cover on? I just really dig those generous cutouts. I think they look so good. I'm using tempered aluminum so I can actually make the case stronger and use these big cutouts. So with a beefy setup like this, the 9700K and a 1080, you are going to need cooling for the HD Plex, and that's where the multi-bracket fan mounts come in. And I'm just kind of experimenting with different fan positions for other kinds of cooling. This is an older STX, micro STX motherboard, so it doesn't have the onboard 2-pin. You'd have to make an adapter for the outboard 4-pin DIN. But here's a newer board with a 2-pin to 6-pin adapter that I made, so you can plug the HD Plex 400 AC right in. So now for my second favorite motherboard layout, the STX form factor. It comes in a case from ASRock, so you actually will have to remove it. You can compare it to the micro STX chassis for the Desk Mini GTX that they sell. It's a little tiny bit taller, but half the size. Here it is next to an S4T. And here they are with their respective power bricks. I'm going to disassemble this real quick to take the board out because you can't actually buy this board single like you can the other boards for micro STX from ASRock. It's really simple though because it's a good case design. This board is great because it has 2 M.2 slots, so basically you can use it to power a PCI Express card using a riser ribbon and keep your NVMe drive. Let's put it in the really Svet powder-coated matte black chassis. This is one of the 3 options I'm contemplating. The color grading kind of makes it look weird here, so sorry about that. Refer to the actual photographs. I do like the nice charcoal gray color though on this. I was actually surprised. Again with 8mm standoffs. First thing to do is going to be to install the HD Plex 200 using the multi-bracket. Here's the new HD Plex 200 AC from HD Plex. And these actually install via 3 threaded holes on the multi-bracket. Slightly different design than the 400 version. It goes right in the front, and you can mount the on-off switch right in the front for that classic NFC mini look. The STX board shares the same mounting as the micro STX. It just uses 4 holes instead of 6. Also, that big generous cutout allows you access to the back side, nice and easy. Now here I am flipping it because there's many different ways to use the multi-bracket, and I'm never going to be able to record all of them. But I'm doing this so you can mount the HD Plex 200 in a different location, alongside the STX. Why you'd want to do this? Well, you can put an AC/DC jack in the back, of course. You can remove the power switch from the front, and here I have as example a little tiny radiator, which if you're clever, you might be able to fit a reservoir and a radiator and a pump. Native mounting points for a 2.5-inch SSD built into the chassis, but you can only use this with STX and micro STX. You can stack multiple 2.5-inch drives on top of each other via other brackets I'll include later. I don't know why you'd want to mount the HDPlex AC this way, but you can. Alright, use some imagination for this last one. Imagine that this is a 1U cooler like a CNPS-2X. A single slot PCI Express card can fit actually right over it very comfortably with a good air gap for a fan. Even with the lid on, both fans would get plenty of airflow. Now the limiting factor is the PCI key, but if you remove it, you can bolt it to the sqeeze. In fact, you could even consider two low profile cards neck to neck with each other for like a 10 gigabit Ethernet card and maybe a Quattro in an incredibly small form factor. And just think, a few minutes ago ITX was exciting, but we still have to cover it for the typical APU build. Installing the 8mm standoffs, quick and easy. Okay, so this is the normal sqeeze bracket that comes with the S4T. It's the default one. You'll notice it has these two little tabs, and that's because you can insert it in the S4T chassis in these little notches, which gives it a lot of strength and also has a couple hidden features, which I'm still trying to work out. But when you put in the inside, I currently have the standoff pegs to offset, so I haven't really made up my mind yet. So to install the board currently, you actually install the sqeeze on the rear of the computer case. And the purpose of this is that you can use a long sqeeze bracket to easily bolt two S4Ts together, which is coming up. I'm demonstrating the size of those two apertures. One's 16mm, the other is 12, and the idea is that you can mount a SkyWire on-off switch and a 12mm DC jack in the back. But, you know, the name of the game is flexibility. With a mini ITX motherboard, you can install the 400 AC/DC power supply from HDPlex with the 200 watt DC/DC, but not the 400. It will not fit in this combo. You'd have to stick it someplace really weird. So here I am going to install the HDPlex 200 AC/DC. This is a better fit for an APU build anyway, or any integrated graphics build. Now I believe I'm actually installing this in the wrong spot because it is really easy to do. There's so many combinations for the multi-bracket. Is it just me, or does this motherboard look completely awesome with the rear cutout for the S4T? I absolutely love it. Here is the new HDPlex 200 DC, and it will fit, but as you can see, I did get the positioning wrong of the HDPlex 200, so I just had to play with it because I knew I designed it correctly in the computer, and here is the appropriate configuration. Yeah, this is going to be a pain to convey how to set up for customers, but I do think it's worth it for all the cool features that I have with this bracket. I think I'm just pointing out there that you need to use the appropriate length screws. If they're too long, then you wouldn't be able to install the bezel, but I'm not sure. Alright, we have success. We have the power supply fitting and it looks snazzy, especially with the lid on. Look at that. Here it is with the matte black lid. Now it's time for the bonus round where we use the S4T as a second module, a second bay. There is the rear, and you can see how a graphics card would fit against a sqeeze bracket. Here I am removing the multi-bracket, so we have more room to play with. Alright, the Gigabyte 2070 Mini is an oversized graphics card, and you can see that it fits even with the connectors perfectly alongside a HDPlex 400 AC. Here is a PowerColor 5700 XT, and it fits perfectly fine as well. It is a normal sized or normal height graphics card, so there's a little bit extra gap. So we put the two minis together, and you can see I have some proprietary mounting that I might use in the future, although I think I'm going to go a different route, but it's there in case I do end up using it. So my current method of attachment is actually to create a new SkyIO and a new front bezel that utilizes the mounting holes on the back and front of the S4T. This would be the easiest way to attach two S4Ts together. This is about where a 5700 XT and the AC/DC would go, and you can see the appropriate gaps. Let's remove the power supply from the current bay and install the 400 watt DC, which is the DC power supply of choice for this setup. The multi-bracket has mounts, of course, for the 400 watt DC. I tried to think of everything and position it correctly. You'll have a lot of room to install it, so this is just one of the places you could put it, and boy does it look awesome, I think, behind the S4T. Here's one of my Skywire cables, which shows how easy and clean the installation can be. Alright, both of them together. You can see that the cables are well thought out and everything lines up very well, very easily, with plenty of room to hide the cables. I think it says about 32 millimeters, 33 millimeters for a normal size graphics card. So this is going to be the perfect length to use a pre-made riser ribbon from Leheat with a perfect fit. Now you could remove the inner brace. I think I might modify them so you don't have to do any adjustments, but they are removable in case you want to have nothing blocking there. Here's a size comparison with the S4MC and the S4M. You can see it's basically the size of an S4M, but with the extra bay for the HDPlex 400 AC. If console style is not your thing, you can set the S4T up sandwich style, like the Dan A4. Of course, you'll need custom panels for this as well, but I'm hard at work designing them, and I could use your help as well. I do have some customers that want to be able to put 3.5-inch drives in a current mini, and you can stack two on top of each other, along with about 4 2.5-inch drives. As far as radiators, this is still unexplored territory. I was just kind of putting them in to see what size it would support. You, of course, could stick in a 180mm radiator, but then that wouldn't leave room for a pump and reservoir. For using the S4T as a cooling bay, I think a 140mm radiator is probably the sweet spot. Well, my patrons, I thank you for sitting through this video and for thinking about the S4T. Please give me feedback. That's why I'm making this. Please send me emails with all of your ideas and suggestions. Is the S4T absolutely crazy? That's fine. Send me an email and tell me so. Does it have potential if I just make a couple changes here or there? Also let me know. Finally, I want to give a shout out to the people who have been feeding me ideas for the S4T. They haven't made it into the prototype or anything in this video yet, but their ideas will make it into a final prototype and hopefully production. Now, speaking of production, I know that many of you guys want to know technical details to the S4T. How big is it? How much is it going to cost? When's it going to be available? Etc., etc. I don't know. That's why I'm making this video. Please help me make all the changes we need before it goes into production. I'm including you on this. I can say that we are really close. I think I've worked out all the hard things. I have most of the manufacturing sorted out. So now I just need to pay the man and get it done. So hopefully we will see this before the summer starts. That's where I'm crossing my fingers. But again, it depends on your feedback. All right, again, blessed Christmas to you guys and Happy New Year. Peace.